Have you ever noticed this? When similar situations come back, we often react in similar ways. Someone raises their voice, and before I realize it, I become sharp too. Someone asks me for something. I do not really want to do it, but I hear myself say, I'm okay with it. Someone points out a mistake. I smile on the outside, but inside, I suddenly freeze. The situations are not exactly the same. The people may be different. The place may be different. And yet the direction of the reaction can be surprisingly similar. This is one of the places Torbit TA pays close attention to. We move through many kinds of weather, but the mind's engine does not invent a completely new response every time. In front of certain triggers, it may tilt toward the same familiar direction again and again. It is a little like wind that keeps arriving from the same direction. Some people become firm the moment they hear an authoritative tone. Even someone who is usually flexible may suddenly tense up and become defensive. Other people push their own feelings aside whenever someone asks them for something. Instead of saying no, they quickly move toward adjusting to the other person. These shifts may be more than temporary mood changes. They may be traces of a repeated gap. The baseline egogram is the familiar arrangement of the mind in everyday life. You can think of it as a baseline blueprint. The momentary egogram, in contrast, shows the fluctuation that appears after a particular stimulus. A difference appears between my usual pattern and what is happening right now. We call that difference the gap. The gap helps us see several things. What rose above the usual level? What suddenly dropped? Where did the fluctuation become larger? Imagine someone who is usually fairly calm. Then they face an authoritative person and suddenly become much firmer. Their tone becomes rigid. Their expression tightens. The urge to correct the other person becomes stronger. In that moment, a CP may have risen more strongly than usual. Now imagine someone else. In everyday life, this person can usually feel their own needs. But the moment someone asks for a favor, they quickly adjust and give way. Inside, the request feels burdensome. But the first words out of their mouth are, yes, I'll do it. In that case, AC may have risen quickly. Another person may experience something different. The moment a mistake is pointed out, their usual ability to observe and organize the situation becomes unclear. Their mind goes blank. Words become hard to find. Something they could normally explain calmly becomes impossible to organize in that moment. Here, A may have temporarily weakened under pressure. The important point is not to judge these shifts as good or bad. The gap is not a report card. It is a signal showing the direction in which the mind's engine moved. If one area rises sharply, we look at why that energy moved forward so quickly. If one area drops, we look at why that function became suppressed. Repeated reactions do not appear out of nowhere. They may contain survival patterns that became familiar long ago. We all found ways to get through difficult weather. Some people learn to become firm first. Some learn to adjust first. Some learn to freeze and wait for danger to pass. When those patterns repeat often enough, they can begin to turn on almost automatically. That is why Torbit TA does not begin by blaming the person. Instead of saying, why are you doing this again? We first look at the structure. I keep moving in this direction. This trigger brings this part of my mind forward first. This may be an old pattern that is still switching on automatically. That perspective matters. A repeated gap may not be a defect. It may be a sign that something that once protected me is still operating automatically today. When we understand this, our own reactions can feel a little less frightening. The reaction is not automatically wrong. At one time, it may have helped us survive. The important question is whether that same pattern still takes over in the present. Is it narrowing my relationships? Is it reducing my choices? Is it exhausting me more than it needs to? These are the questions worth observing. So the first step is not blame. The first step is observation. When we are automatically shaken, we often ask, why am I like this? There are times when that question matters. But in momentary tuning, how usually comes first. We first observe how the mind's engine is moving right now. Imagine that someone's tone feels cold. My voice immediately becomes rigid. My sentences become shorter. My expression becomes sharp. Or the opposite may happen. I start smiling. I adjust to the other person. I feel uncomfortable. But I pretend everything is fine. I check the other person's mood before checking my own. At that moment, what I need is not self-blame. If I stop at, why am I always like this? The mind becomes even narrower. Instead, I can notice what is happening. This tone activated a particular part of my engine. My CP is rising faster than usual right now. My AC is moving toward adjustment first. My A has temporarily moved back. That awareness matters. For the first time, I take one small step back from being fully immersed in the reaction. I move slightly away from being carried by the emotion. And I move toward a place where I can observe it. Once a pattern becomes visible, the door to tuning begins to open. Tuning does not mean forcing emotion down. It means separating an automatic reaction from a response I can choose now. I can ask whether the sharpness rising inside me is actually needed here. I can ask whether my compliance is genuine care or an old automatic response. I can ask whether my silence is a wise pause or a frozen reaction. Once I can make that distinction, reaction begins to move toward choice. This is where A becomes important again. A does not ignore emotion. A reads the present state first. What rose? What dropped? Does this gap fit what this situation actually needs? Or is an old automatic pattern being pushed forward by the past? If the pattern repeatedly makes life harder, small adjustments become possible. For an overheated engine, I can create distance. I can wait one beat before answering. I can release some tension in my body. I can lower my voice and slow down. For an engine that has gone quiet, I can add fuel. I can say one more sentence. I can state one line of what I need. I can say, I'll think about it and get back to you. Tuning does not eliminate the automatic reaction. It places choice back on top of it. It creates a small difference in a flow that once responded to the same trigger in the same way every time. What matters is not a dramatic transformation. What matters is creating a small difference in a flow that once reacted the same way every time. In the past, I may have become sharp immediately. This time, I can pause for one beat. In the past, I may have adjusted to the other person right away. This time, I can check my own feelings first. In the past, I may have frozen. This time, I can say one sentence. I'll think about it for a moment. Even one sentence can change the flow. A small difference changes the path of repetition. The wind in the mind that once always blew in the same direction gradually learns another direction. At that point, we are no longer living only from an automatic design shaped by the past. We begin to protect the deeper climate of our own mind while being less controlled by today's weather. Here is the main point of this section. A repeated gap may not be a defect. It may be a signal that an old protective pattern is still turning on automatically. So the sequence is not blame first. Observation comes first, then distinction, then tuning. As that process builds, we no longer have to repeat the same response to the same trigger every time. At that point, fluctuation is no longer destiny. It becomes an adjustable waveform. And little by little, we become better able to read and work with the direction of the mind's engine in any kind of weather.